Hey guys, what's up? So, I was gonna get started with the typical videos that you guys expect me to put out, and to be honest, I have a lot. I don't know if it's a lot, but I at least got a couple of topics in mind, several topics in mind, on, things on culture, the current political environment, strategies that are really frustrating to have to encounter. But before I get into any of that, I think there's something else I need to bring up first. And it's something that I would like you guys to keep in mind so that a lot of the videos that I come out with after this, and even the videos that came out with before this, the topic I'm about to bring up now will hopefully bring a lot of that into context. I'm going to be bringing up something that is not, I'm not necessarily going to call it the central focus that I'm coming from, but it's one of the main themes that I'm working with, so it hopefully will help give you guys an idea of where I'm coming from. Like one of the facts that, is helping to guide the thoughts that I, have on the topics that I bring up. So let me just get on with it. I've been, like I said, organizing my thoughts on the later type of videos I wanted to make. And I also wanted, I've been looking up a lot of the YouTube videos from people who I used to watch before and people who I've corresponded with on YouTube, just to kind of catch up on things and also, see what topics are being discussed and such. And watching all of these different videos and thinking about the stuff I wanted to. Yeah, I got another cat. No, this one's not going to flash you. At least I'll stop it from flashing. What's I saying? Watching all these different topics kind of brought back into mind a certain fact that we as human beings love to try to forget, try to ignore. But I think it's really, an important aspect of ourselves that we really need to keep in mind when we talk about these sorts of things. And it's that humans are animals. We are animals. Not some different type of animal, not some removed. No, we are animals, period. I know it's a fact that we love to forget, we love to ignore, and we go through great pains to, try and, push out of our minds, try to separate ourselves. We come up with all types of, BS excuses. And, we have consciousness, we have intelligence, we have language, we have civilization, we use tools, opposable thumbs. We're animals, all right? We are animals. We have animalistic instincts, just like any other organism on this planet, animalistic organism on this planet. We have instincts, we have drives, we have particular behavior patterns, and we can be trained. And that's the main thing that I'm bringing into focus here. We can be trained, just like any other animal. We can be trained. And more importantly, we can be trained to go against our own basic instincts. We can be trained to act against our own best interests. We can even be trained to go up against our basic survival instincts, just like we can do with any other animal. Any animal can be trained. We are no exception. To bring this, a little bit into focus, to bring up an example, think of the dog. Mankind's supposed best friend. Touch my hair. We've, more or less thoroughly domesticated the dog. I say more or less because, certain accidents happen, vicious dog, whatever, badly trained, as they would say. But, we pretty much domesticated the dog. Almost as long as you can, record back into human history, human beings have worked with dogs and used them for a variety of different tasks. Everything from helping them to herd sheep to these days we have more modern uses such as sniffing out bombs and, leading the blind so, safe for them to, go through urban environments and such. And The dog has been, not just thoroughly domesticated, but of course hand in hand with it has been thoroughly trained over the years. And we've gotten dogs to be extremely obedient, to, pretty much do what we want them to do. And dogs are, of course, eager to please. They consider the human beings as part of their pack because that's how they've been bred. And that's the breeding process is also amazing. Like, scientists have discovered that we have bred the dog so thoroughly. We messed with it so much. There's been so much human intervention into the evolutionary development of the dog that they can now pretty much they've mapped out so much of the dog's genome and DNA that you can like turn on and off switches at will now to make it come out, a certain way physically. I know I'm messing up the facts here, but look it up. It's just really fascinating. But the point I want to make here is that, we have thoroughly trained the dog to be obedient and to serve our purposes. And that's what makes a good dog, that it does whatever we tell it to do. You tell it to sit, it sits. Or he or she sits, for those a bit more sensitive. But, you tell the dog to sit, dog's going to sit. You tell the dog to, fetch, dog's fetching. You say stay, stays. You put the bone on its nose. Don't stay, don't eat it. And the dog wants to eat it, but you got it well trained. So that, Fido is not going to eat that bone until you say, okay, it's okay. You train it to shake hands, and then we got more complicated ones like being able to guard the house and start barking if there's an intrusion or if there's a fire and things like that. A lot of useful things. But don't forget the fact that we're also training it to go against its own basic interests. A dog originally came from, like the wolf and other wilder species of canine. They have hunting instincts. They have the type of instincts where they're supposed to, forage for food, hunt for food, use their predatory nature to attack, smaller creatures. And we constantly berate any dogs doing that sort of thing. Hell, we've even now training dogs not to even relieve themselves except when we want them to. The urge to have to, to relieve oneself, to go to the bathroom is a strong freaking one. We all know this. But yet we got dogs trained so that if they have, their bladders and colons are filled to bursting. And yet we got that dog trained, just to sit there and whine. And, it's not going to take a crap until you give it a walk. You have to, take it for a walk. Dogs, whining at you and like, hold on, I'm freaking watching the game. Got it waiting a few more minutes before you finally reach to get the leash to, finally, have mercy on the poor little dog or big dog, and let it go out and take a crap or whatever. And that's kind of going against its own biological drives. But we've got that dog trained, and that's a good dog. And that's what we do to ourselves. That's, what we do to ourselves. We've trained ourselves to go against our own particular drives. We're not immune to this sort of training. Now, before I go on, I need to stress that right now I'm not even going into the ethical ramifications of this. Okay, that's a whole other can of worms, and I have my own particular thoughts on what would be bad or good or whatever. But I'm just speaking on it as it is right now. I'm not, that's a whole different topic to talk about, like the ethical ramifications of this. I'm not bringing ethics into this at all right now. I'm just right now just simply trying to bring into focus the fact that all animals can be trained. We're not above this type of training. We train other animals and we train ourselves in the same way. We come up with, not to get back on topic, we come up with a lot of different, words for this. We'll say things like, it's discipline. It's teaching ethics. It's giving this person structure. Some people might even go so far as to call it, cultural conditioning or social conditioning. Or if we're going to use a more honest word, training. But we only use that word for specific things like martial arts training or job training. But we're being trained, period, for a variety of different things. All the way down to when you're being an infant. Culture does this. Culture in society, human societies, do this to get us behaving in a way that, just like the dog owner, works in their best interest. Not necessarily yours, and it isn't necessarily going to be working with your particular interests or your particular natural instincts. To bring a more humorous example into this, you guys have seen, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen that classic comedy act of Bill Cosby's. You know, when he talks about raising his kids. I believe it's called Himself. You can easily find the comedy act on YouTube or find this particular clip, this particular short bit of his act, where he's talking about I believe it was his 2-year-old, at the time, 2-year-old daughter. I'm sure she's more older than 2 now. How he would have a glass, like some type of beverage, and he'd put it down and he'd go up to get a newspaper. Child sees the drink, reaches out, wants to drink it, like gets the drinks. Chai tea. Starts to drink it. Guy rushes over. Oh my God, give me that! Didn't I tell you not to drink it? Kids, Now tell me what I just said. You guys know the act. You've seen it. You're not telling me not for to drink your drink. That's right. You know, and he berates the child, puts the drink down. The child quickly picks it up again. She starts to drink. He's like, give me that! Didn't I just tell you? And then he says that, you know, the kid goes, then why'd you do it? I don't know. And of course, you know, Bill rants that this is brain damage, which is the punchline, and everyone laughs. And I, as a parent, and many other parents laugh at that joke about how our kids seem brain damaged because you tell them not to do something and they go and do it anyway, and they don't even know why they've done it. If you're a parent, you can relate to this. Even if you're not a parent, if you've at least lived in a large family and you remember your siblings when they were really small and they just did things, you know, no matter how many times you tried to stop them, you know, you can relate. But and we laugh at that. It's funny. But if we're going to start putting our thinking caps back on and start thinking about this, no, the child isn't brain damaged. The child is simply not conditioned. The child is working off of her natural instincts like any other animal, and especially a smaller human being or any other smaller creature, but especially a human being who hasn't been conditioned yet. Think of a child. Or think of I'm going to put it to a question first. The child is reaching for a beverage, right? And no matter how many times you try to stop the kid from drinking, she's going to go and drink it. Same thing like, say, you know, the mother with the cookies in the jar. We've seen this with a candy dish, and the kid's always reaching for it. I told you not to do that. And the kid's coming up with elaborate ways. Sometimes you put the cookie jar on the top of the fridge, and the kid's now building a freaking ladder made out of boxes or whatever to get up there. Which, by the way, goes to show the type of intelligence that begins to be exhibited even at that early age. You know, they're going to do all these things just to get the food. And here's the question. What's wrong with a kid getting food? Notice how I put the question. I didn't say what's wrong with having the kid go and get cookies. I didn't say what's wrong with the kid getting candy, because you guys are conditioned to come up with an answer for that. Oh, the candy's bad for them. The cookie's going to spoil their dinner. They can't eat that. It's not real food. No, it's food. It may be food that's devoid of any real nutritional value, you know, considering the type of food it is, but it's still food. And that's the point. The child is reaching for food, just like any other animal. That cat you just saw, I put a steak down somewhere, that cat's going to run down and try to eat it. Because that's what creatures do. This is what animals do. Because we need food to survive. And especially a young infant, a toddler. That toddler right now is under enormous pressure from his or her own instincts to do what it takes to survive and learn around the world, to experience the world around them and to gather in as much information from that ever-hungry brain of theirs. Remember, that organ is probably the hardest working organ, especially when one's a baby. It needs fats, it needs sugars. So the drive to constantly feed that brain, especially at that age, is huge. It needs those fats, it needs those sugars, because that's what the brain lives off of. That's fats and sugars, which, by the way, any person who's screaming at you about low-fat diet and sugar, remind them that the brain needs these things. It's not that you're weak-willed that you crave fats and sweets. There's a reason why this stuff smells so good and tastes so good, because that's what your body needs, especially your brain. That's what it runs off of. Your brain does not work off of complex grains. You know, what you should call it does not work off of, high grains. It doesn't work off of, like just leafy vegetables. Your brain needs fats and it needs sugars. And at that early age with the baby and the toddler learning language, trying to figure out how to use its limbs effectively, learning how to use the baby's hands, coming up with crude tools, all these things need energy to function, and that brain always needs that energy. So that drive to eat these foods is huge. And it remembers the cookie is sweet, it's got sugars. The taste buds, the taste in your mouth, it knows there's fat there. Don't think that your sense of taste is there just for you to enjoy food. It's also there to let you know what's in it. It knows where the good shit is. So something that is mostly made up of fats and sugars, like a cookie, is going to be very appealing to a kid. And that drive, that instinct to feed itself is there. And here you are trying to stop this kid from going with his own basic natures for your own sake of state of mind, for your own convenience. And you thoroughly condition that child not to follow that impulse. And that's society in a nutshell, people. That's culture. That's not all of it is of culture, of course. I'm making it too simplistic. But I'm trying to bring that into focus for you guys to understand what it is that we do to each other, society-wise. We come up with a bunch of rules and come up with a bunch of training, practical training rules and guidelines to force us to act in ways that don't necessarily work in our best interest or work for our own particular instincts. It's more for the sake of order. Whose order? That's another topic. Again, I'm not trying to go into any ethical ramifications here, political ramifications. I'm just trying to bring that into focus. We can be easily trained to go up against our own best interests. It happens all the time. It's why we think the way we do, culturally. And, it's why sometimes you'll find people acting and thinking in ways that don't work for them. In self-destructive ways sometimes. They've been thoroughly conditioned to act that way, and they were rewarded in whatever fashion to think or act or behave that way. Like the same way that you would say good boy, good girl to your child if they did a behavior that you approve of. There's certain, reinforcing of behaviors in culture as well that later on the person's going to respond to without even realizing that they've been conditioned to respond that way. This is why you'll sometimes see people, for instance, endorsing philosophies or ideologies that will work against them, and yet they can't realize it because maybe part of it is because they're stupid and not thinking, but a lot of it also has to do with training and conditioning, which we are. We are animals. Any animal can be manipulated. And human beings are very good at training other animals, and we are animals, so we are no exception. Don't think you're immune. All these ideologies, like stuff such as, ridiculous right-wing ideologies which are supporting oppressors, or ideologies which completely oppress women, or, certain thought patterns that, make men look like assholes, or racism, all these type of things come from conditioning and training. I think the only thing that's it's one of the main drives. You'll be conditioned to reject certain facts that will be presented to them. They're not going to react that way because they already got positive conditioning towards believing the thing that's going to screw them over. We've done that to animals, other animals. We've done it to ourselves. Again, I'm not trying to... the ethical ramifications, this is another topic. I'm just simply speaking of it as it is, because I'm not necessarily saying it's an overall bad thing. Hell, one can even argue that we as social animals, as part of our social natures, we do have to come up with rules and ways of being able to work with each other. And sometimes it may end up going against certain instinctual drives that may mess up that order. That would be an interesting topic to discuss and debate about. Because I don't think that, and that would yield some very interesting answers. I don't think we fully explored that yet. But if you think that you're not immune to any of the types of conditioning that we do to animals to get them to act in ways that go against their own basic natures and even their own basic survival, look at it this way. If we can get freaking bears to ride on unicycles and get tigers to jump through hoops instead of eating the freaking tasty, squishy snack that's holding the whip, what makes you think that you are couldn't be conditioned by that? Think of the power. Think of how much went into getting that bear, something that could kill you in one hit, to go around on a unicycle with a stupid red hat on his head, and you think you can't be conditioned? You're an animal. You can be just as fucked up. Food for thought. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out the way before I get into my other videos so you can get an idea of where I'm coming from when I come up with these crazy videos of mine. Catch you guys later.